pension benefits in tiny California town to be slashed as Ponzi scheme is exposed. How many times do I have to come out here and talk about these pensions? They also like to cook the books. Oh, I didn't know I was supposed to do accounting that way. Oh, I didn't know. Oh, sorry. But before I get into that, this background that you see right now, where it says Skype, that's where the contestants are going to be on the game show. I just did a test with my kids. All three of them were pretend contestants. And we just did a full show. And it took about 20 minutes. It was a 20-question show, and it took about 20 minutes to do the whole show, which is good. Not too long, not too short. So this is kind of what it looks like. Except those buttons that say next question and start timer, I'm going to modify this a little bit. You probably won't see those. But anyways, this is kind of what it looks like. And I am pretty much ready. Pretty much ready to start taking some contestants. So I want to go finish reading all of the comments on that video I did the other day where I asked people's opinions. Should I do a buy-in, a $1 or $2 buy-in to try to, again, for a potential chance to get on the show, just to build a nest egg so that whoever gets on the show, which would be someone who pitched in, that would be who's the choice is from, would, anyways, be on the show and potentially win the prize. But I think I'm ready to do this. Like, I don't know about this weekend, but for sure next week for sure. Maybe even this weekend. We'll see. So on to the story. Pension benefits from Zero Hedge, of course, in tiny California town to be slashed as Ponzi scheme is exposed. Should you ever, again, especially in the good old United States of America, ever hear the word retirement pension and Ponzi scheme? You might actually be saying, actually, Jason, yes, I am very much expecting that. Because we've been seeing it for so long, corruption being exposed. This is a problem everywhere in this country. And just wait for some of the bigger pension funds. I got another story. Where's that one at? I know I sent it to myself. Russian government, nope. 2 simple charts show which state pension funds are most likely to enforce. Yeah, I think that might be the one. There's one where I saw the world's largest pension fund is now cutting back on employment. We're going to cut people, yada, yada, yada. And I was reading something like they are responsible for, was it the S&P? They invest so much that if that, that they can move the S&P market, alone. Can't remember if I sent that to myself or not. It might have been that one, but that's like a whole other video. So, on to the story. For the tiny little town of Loyalton, California. Loyal. We're so loyal, we created a town. Loyal citizens, we don't backstab, we have morals. We just want to retire in peace. I just want a pension, little nest, little nest egg, little squirrel nut at the end of my life, working life, to retire on. We got a town called Loyalton. That's kind of like passing the Patriot Act. You think it sounds good up front. Or the Affordable Care Act, the ACA, Obamacare. The Affordable Care Act, in which the exact opposite is true. The extremely unaffordable Care Act, or the extremely unpatriotic act. So, not to say that this is why the town was named. I'm making that up. But the town's name is Loyalton, California. I just do a little bonus analogy kind of a deal. With a population of only 700, a failure of city council members to understand the difference between the calculation a regular everyday pension liability and a termination liability has left 4 residents at risk of losing their pensions from CalPERS. According to the New York Times, the town of Loyalton decided to, drop out of CalPERS back in 2012 in order to save some money. But what they got instead was a $1.6 million bill which was more than their annual budget. For those who aren't familiar with pension accounting, we can shed some light on the issue faced by Loyalton. There are two different ways to calculate the present value of pension liabilities. One methodology applies to solvent, fully functioning pension funds. We call this the Ponzi methodology. And the other applies to pensions that are being terminated. We call this one reality. Under the Ponzi methodology, pension funds like CalPERS discount their future liabilities at a 7.5% rate in order to keep the present value of their liabilities artificially low. So wait a minute. The banks cook their books, accounting records, the pension system, the people in charge of these pensions. That's right, because the other day, well, maybe it was a month or two ago, not the other day, but recently, JSNIP4 on your side tonight at 9, talked about the same thing, 8%. It's an expected rate of return. And they can safely say, well, if we can get 8% on this much money we have, this is our liabilities, these are the assets. Except the problem's been happening over the last few years. It's not 8%. 7.5 turns to 7, 7 turns to, oh my gosh, it's going down. And when I did the video a couple months ago, whatever it was, I showed you that just a half of 1%, was enormous amounts of money. And it was like, I don't know if it was the mayor or I think it was the governor. It was somebody was saying essentially to the people who handle the pension, like, please, on paper, just say it's worth 7.5%. Don't go any lower than that, please. We already went from 8 to 7.5. Don't say it's 7. Please say it's 7.5. Because a full point from 8 to 7 would be absolutely horrible. The problem is it doesn't matter what the paper says. It's nothing more than an educated guess. We think the rate of return for this pension, historically speaking, it's been 8% return over 20-year period is a very common. How about for the last 8 years? How's that 8% return been working out for you pensioners? So 8% expected turns to 7.5 to 7 to 6.5 to 6. And you know what causes this? You want to know what's causing this to go down? Federal Reserve interest rate policies. When the feds bring down the interest rate, you are killing the pensioners, the retirees. When interest rates are back up to normal levels, not even high, just normal levels, then they can turn around and say we can expect that 8%, whatever annual yield. But we got a problem. If they raise the rates, all these derivative contracts out there, most of which are related to interest rates, would be setting off a financial nuclear bomb, so to speak, the derivatives. So again, we know they plan on doing this. As I've said, I strongly believe they're going to wait till after the elections. All these dates, Shemitah and all this crap, Jubilee, come and gone. Bull Pony, October 2nd. Crash will happen by October 2nd. Today's the 13th. About 2 weeks behind, practically. Just about. Again, you can't put dates on this when people at the top, the club, are rigging everything. It only happens when they want it to happen. The problem is they know it has to happen because they don't want to have to face unbelievable amounts of retirees, pensioners, saying, yeah, look, we're going to have to cut that pension. We're going to have to do this. We're going to have to do that. And everyone's going to figure out it's because of your crappy interest rate policies. Yeah, but what you don't know is if we raise the interest rates, the whole world's economy collapses. Which is why I think that's their plan. We don't want to deal with these pensioners. We're going to let this collapse happen on our time when we want, which in theory should be soon. And then we could raise those interest rates. We can reverse this problem with the pensions. Double-edged sword. One way, bankers love you. Everyone else hates you. 0% interest rate. And then the opposite of that is raise their interest rates. But if you go too high with interest rates, the people still hate you. Pensioners love you, but there's still people who have to buy stuff, get a mortgage, get a credit card, get whatever. And oh my God, these interest rates are killing me. I can't do it. So you're still screwing us. An okay interest rate. Whatever happened to 5, 6, 7%? Anyways. Under the Ponzi methodology, pension funds like CalPERS discount their future liabilities at 7.5% in order to keep the present value of their liabilities artificially low. That way, pension funds can maintain the illusion that they're solvent and the Ponzi scheme can continue so long as there are enough assets to cover annual benefit payments. Now, the managers of the pension funds aren't actually dumb enough to believe that the Ponzi methodology accurately reflects the true and present value of future liabilities, because they know that particularly in light of current central banking policies around the world, low interest rate, their actual long-term returns will be much lower than 7.5%. Therefore, they have completely separate special calculation that applies when towns like Loyalton want to exit their plan. This termination liability, or what we refer to as reality, uses a discount rate closer to or even below risk-free rates, which means the present value of the future liabilities is actually much higher. Liabilities, that is. As a quick example, let's just assume that Loyalton's 4 pensioners draw $225,000 per year. First of all, where do I sign up for that salary? Anyways, in aggregate pension benefits, and enjoy a 2% annual inflation adjustment. Assuming a 7.5% discount rate, the present value of that liability stream is about $2.9 million. However, if the discount rate drops to 2%, the present value of those liabilities surges to $4.5 million, hence the $1.6 million bill sent to Loyalton City Council. Of course, the 4 residents of Loyalton currently drawing a pension were outraged by the discovery that their monthly benefits may be slashed. Quote, you're going to hear this quote or something similar going on year after year, starting like now. And when the party really gets started, it's going to be a common thing you hear. TV, protests, riots, why are you old people rioting? Webbot said it in advance, gray-haired people are going to be rioting. We already had that happen in Greece, but we having it here in America soon. Quote, I worked all those years, and they did this to me, said Patsy Jardin, 71, who kept the town's books for 29 years, then retired in 2004 on an annual pension of about $48,000. Now, because of Loyalton's troubles, CalPERS could cut it to about $19,000. In Loyalton, Mr. Cousins? Hope he ain't cussing all the time. Mr. Cousins, the retiree and city council member, said he was so frustrated about being barred from the council's pension discussions that he... Hold on. A moment, stand by. Oh, I just channeled Hillary and was able to recover. Thanks, Hill. Mr. Cousins, the retiree and city council member, said he was so frustrated about being barred from the council's pension discussions that he and another former town worker drove to Sacramento to attend CalPERS' last board meeting. The trustees were cordial, he said, but they held out little hope. Quote, we had a bunch of them come and shake our hands, he said. I said, we need some guidance. They told us the city could apply to get back into CalPERS next spring, but they made it very clear that they will not allow the city to get back into CalPERS until that $1.6 million tab is paid. As CalPERS Chief of Public Affairs points out, the state of California is not responsible for a public agency's unfunded liabilities. Public agency? I thought it's government agency. Why are you calling it a public agency? Isn't it part of the government, the same government of California? Just a city or town, right, same thing. And since CalPERS knows that the Ponzi methodology is not an accurate reflection of their true liabilities, towns like Loyalton must pay the difference between the Ponzi methodology and reality when they choose to withdraw. Public pensions are supposed to be bulletproof because cities, unlike companies, seldom go bankrupt, and states never do. Of all the states, experts say California has the most protective pension laws in legal precedence. Once public workers join CalPERS, state courts have ruled their employers must fund their pensions for the rest of their careers, even if the cost was severely underestimated at the outset. Something that has happened in California and elsewhere numerous times, I'll add. Across the country, many benefits were granted at the height of the 1990s bull market on the faulty assumption that investments would be climbing and cover most of the cost. And that flawed premise is now hitting home in places like Loyalton. Quote, the state of California is not responsible for a public agency's unfunded liabilities, said Wayne Davis, CalPERS chief of public affairs. Nor is CalPERS willing to play Robin Hood, taking a little more from wealthy communities like Palo Alto or Malibu to help luckless Loyalton. And if it gave a break to one, other struggling communities would surely ask for the same thing, setting up a domino effect. Ms. Davis, the CalPERS spokesman, Mr. Davis, the CalPERS spokesman, said that since 2011, CalPERS had been giving its member municipalities a hypothetical termination liability in their annual actuarial reports, so there was little excuse for not knowing that a payment would be due upon exit. But the former mayor of Loyalton said the paperwork was simply too confusing. Mrs. Whitley disagreed. It's just too confusing, she said. I looked at what's been happening with all the other entities, and I saw that eventually it's going to collapse. It's almost like a Ponzi scheme, she said. No, Miss Whitley. No, darling. It's not almost like a Ponzi scheme. It is a Ponzi scheme. While Whitley was right that her town was trapped in a Ponzi scheme, she failed to recognize that the critical fact that only willing participants get to participate in the Ponzi. For everyone else, we have to continue living in quote-unquote reality. Back to life, back to reality. You remember that one? Any older folks? Yeah? 90s? Yep. Take care.